Hello there, grade 5s. Good to have you back again. Let's not spend any time with a preamble. Let's jump straight into the maths. Your standard beginning of the lesson reminders. If you'd like to email me, it's grade5@worksheetcloud.com. I'm Mr. T or Mr. Travis, and after the lesson, click on the link at the top and do the worksheet there just to see that you've mastered what it is that we're doing today. As normal, our first slide will be mental arithmetic. 10 problems, 40 seconds. You need to solve them. Today, it's just answers that we're looking for. Your 40 seconds start now. Halfway there. Stop. 13 minus 8 is 5. 15 minus 2 is 13. 9 minus 6 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. 15 minus 10 is 5. 14 minus 2 is 12. 8 minus 5 is 3. 7 minus 6 is 1. 15 minus 4 is 11. And 14 minus 3 is 11. If you missed any of those, or you got confused when I accidentally said the wrong number, just go back, rewind, and listen again so you can check how well you did. I do this daily practice because, as I keep saying, mental arithmetic and times tables are the key to a decent maths mark. Today, we come to that section that people really often struggle with a lot. And it's not my favorite section to teach. When I learned about time in school, it was one of those things that I just got. And I found it quite easy when I was young, and it is one of those things that's a little bit confusing, mostly because of the way we say it, and there's different variations. But hopefully after today's lesson, we'll be on the way to getting this right. I have broken down time into more than one lesson just because it is one of those topics that takes a little bit of time to get. And so I'll spend a couple of lessons on time. But today we're going to start that process. Our goals today, first of all, understand the difference between analog and digital time, then understand 12 hours, which is the AM and PM time, and finally the 24-hour time. And hopefully you will be able to read analog time. So first of all, write it down and then be able to say it the way that it's said, which is just a little bit confusing sometimes. Okay. First up, the difference between analog and digital. Analog is this one with a clock that looks with the numbers on the face. We call this a face or a clock face. We have 3 hands on it. The fat or short one is the hour hand. The longer fat one is the minute hand. And this one here is the second hand. Second as in 60 seconds in the middle, not second as in 1, 2, 3. It's not all clocks have a second hand. Some of them just have hours and minutes, and generally I will just look at hours and minutes. So the hour hand goes all the way around the clock once every 12 hours, and the minute hand goes once every hour. So it goes 60 minutes around, and if we had this one, this goes around every minute. The second hand goes around every minute, so it goes around 3,600 times an hour. Hope that was right. That was a quick mental one. Okay. 360 times in an hour, not 3,600. Digital time. That's the one which is done with numbers. Okay. So with analog, we have 24 hours in a day. And this kind of clock only shows 12 hours. And so what that means is we have to have a way of showing whether it's the first 12 hours, which is the morning part, or the second 12 hours, which is the afternoon evening part. And that's why we have these two things, AM and PM. And these are Latin, or they're short for Latin. AM stands for ante-meridian, which means before the middle. And PM stands for post-meridian, which means after the middle. So this is before middle of the day, and this is after middle of the day. Yeah, so that's why we have to have, because this clock only shows 12 hours and we have 24 hours in a day. So that's where AM and PM comes in. With digital clocks, we can either choose to have it as a 12-hour clock, in which case we have AM and PM as well. So you can see this one's showing PM. So this is a 12-hour digital clock. This one down here is a 24-hour digital clock. And because there's 24 hours and there are only 24 hours in a day, if we're using a 24-hour digital clock, we don't actually need AM or PM at all. In fact, not only do we not need it, we mustn't have it. Okay, so this, when you're at a 24-hour clock, is when you won't have AM or PM. We're going to come back to that in a future lesson. Today, we're really going to focus on the analog clock and how to read, because that's probably the area most people struggle with when it comes to clocks. Okay, so it's across to the whiteboard. And there's our clock. I've got a blank clock up there. All right, so you can see that around the clock we have 12 numbers. So this over here is the 12, we've got the 3, we've got the 6, and we've got the 9. But you'll also notice that we have these smaller lines in between. Okay, and this is where maybe a clock becomes a little bit more complicated, because these numbers here are referring to the hours. But while we are referring to the hours, we also have a minute hand and the second hand. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's 5 minutes. So I'm doing the minutes in blue. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm going to pause the video quickly while I do all the rest. Amazing, and there it is. Okay, so you can see that's a lot of numbers all the way around. There are 60 seconds or 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute, and 0 and 60 are the same number. All right, so or the same spot on the clock there at the 12. Now, for what we're doing today, I'm going to avoid using the very, very small numbers, all of those ones in between. But what I am going to do is just look at where the hours are and notice that they're in the 5 times table. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and the top is 0 or 60. It's the same number. Whew, okay. I'm also not going to use a second hand, so I'm only going to use an hour hand and a minute hand when we look at it. Okay, so I'm actually going to break this down into 2 sections. First of all, how we write the number, which is probably the easier part, and secondly, how we say it. Yes, let me start off, but let me also just point out, for extra points, this is why time is complicated. You will notice that I could divide my clock into 4, and if we divide things into 4, we talk about quarters. So this one is a quarter past. This is a half, all the way around to a half. So this is half past, and I'm sure you've heard your parents or your teachers talking about half past or that sort of thing. And this one, it's a quarter until the next hour, so we call it this one quarter to. So quarter past, quarter to, half past, and this one is the hour, which is o'clock. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, and so on and so forth. Right, so starting off by doing how we write the number. Let's start off by looking at a couple of examples, and then I'll move across to the clocks on the right and the table, and we'll do some over there. So I'm going to draw my hour hand in pink or red all the time. So let's start off with this one. I'm going to do my minute hand in blue because I've done the blue over there already. So normally they'd be behind each other. I just don't want to color over. So my minute hand and my hour hand are pointing both up to the 12. And the way that we write that, and I'm going to just scribble it a little bit on the right. Let's just move it across a little bit. Here we go. We write that and say that it is 12 and no minutes. So that's 12 o'clock. I'm not going to put the AM and the PM in yet. It could be 12 o'clock in the morning or the evening. We're just going to look at 12 o'clock. Okay, so that's an example. Let's say that our minute hand was pointing to the 2, and our hour hand was pointing to just past the 1 like that. Well, the first thing we're going to do is write down our hour hand. It's something after 1. So it's going to be 1 and then some minutes. Now this is pointing to the 2, but remember that that 2, which I've underlined in the red or pink color, is for the hours. And when it's the minutes, we've got to look at the numbers on the outside. That's why I'm using the blue. And that is pointing to the 10. So this is in fact 110. So remember, I'm not saying it the way we say it. At the moment, I'm just writing it down the way we would write it. Let's look at another example. This time I'm going to make the hour hand point between 6 and 7, and the minute hand point down to the 6. All right, the hour hand is between 6 and 7. And this is often a little confusing. Some people want to put the 7, some want to put the 6. Here's how I remember it. And it's a little bit of a weird story, so bear with me here. When you were born, how old were you until you turned 1? You were 0. So for the whole first year, you were alive, you were 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and finally at the end of that time, you were 1. So you're 0 until you get to 1. And the same thing happens with the hours. The hour is 6 until it gets to the 7. I hope that little story makes sense. I hope you're going to be able to remember it. So the hour for the time that's on the clock now is 6 and something. All right, so our minute hand is pointing all the way to the bottom, which is the 30. So it's 6:30. There we go. Let's look at another 2 examples. Let's look at if it was pointing, the hour hand pointing down here, and the minute hand pointing over there. So first up, I'm going to look at my hours. It is after 3, but it hasn't reached 4. So it's in the 3rd hour, so it's 3. And my minutes is not pointing to 9 because it's blue. Remember, it's pointing to the minutes on the outside, and so that makes it 45. So 3:45. One more example. All right, let's make our clock, our hours point up to just before the 12, and our minutes pointing over here. So again, looking at our hour, it's after 11, but it hasn't reached 12, which means we're going to put 11. For the minutes, we look at the outside, so it's 55. So 11:55. All right. Now comes the part where it's a little bit weird when we're talking about how we do time. So let's look back at the clock. I'm going to choose purple for this explanation, or this part of the explanation. And I'm going to tell a stupid joke. So there was this man, Bob, and he was swimming across a river. And he was swimming, it was a wide river, and he was swimming, and he got to exactly the middle. So it was the same distance forward as back, and he got tired, so he turned around and swam back. Now, I hope some of you are groaning and at home and going, why would he turn back? It's the same distance to get to the other side, and then he could say he got all the way across. And that's kind of how we tell time. So for the first half of the clock, or the river, we talk about how far we are from where we started. So we talk about how far we were from the hour that we were coming from. And then, on the other side, we talk about how far we still have to go. So we go backwards from the hour in front of us. So we say how many minutes until we get to the next hour. And that's really, I think, the thing that trips people up the most. So let's look at the times that we've written down on the side there. I'm going to scooch over a little bit. And let's write down what those times are in words. So I'm saying in words because that's the way you will pronounce those times. So when it's 12, we say that it's 12. No, that's not how you spell 12. 12 o'clock. Because it's on the hour. And you remember at the top it says there o'clock in yellow. I'm going to move over a tiny bit more. 12 o'clock. Let's look at the second one. Okay, so here's where it comes in with the purple. And we've got a 10. Make my iPad smaller. Over here you can see that we are going 10 minutes after the hour. So we're going to say 10. Oh, got to write a bit smaller. 10 past. So we've gone after the hour. So there's 10 past. And our hour was 1. So we got 10 past 1. That's how we write that. We go to the next one. And we've gone all the way halfway around the clock. And we've ended up at the yellow thing at the bottom. And that one has a special name. And it's written there on the clock. So that one is half past. You could say 30 minutes past, but this one is a special one. Half past. And the hours were 6. So half past 6. Now we move on to the side that's green. And we're looking at how far we have to go still. So if I look at this one over here, this one has a special name. It's 1:45 because it's a quarter of the clock. So 1:45, and our hours were, so our hour was 3, but because we're on the side where we're counting down to the next hour, we're going to say 4:45 because we're counting down. That's how far it is to go to the next hour. Even explaining this, I can see why people get confused. Let's look at the last one. So again, we're in the side where we're counting down. We've got 55, which is over here. And if we look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to go until the next hour. So we say 5 to, or 5 minutes to. We were looking at that one, but we're going towards the next one. So we say 5 minutes to 12. Whew. Complicated. All right, let's jump across to our table on the right. And I've got a few, and you guys can guess, but I'm only going to do 9. I hope we have enough time. I'm going to pause quickly while I put the times that we're going to look at on, and then we'll go through them. Right, here we go. Let's see how we manage with this. Okay, so the first one, in fact, the first few I've done them as past ones, but let's not work with that necessarily. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to write down the time for each one before we actually write down how we would say it. So with the first one, I'm going to write down the hour. It's between 1 and 2, which means we say that it's 1. For the second one, it's between 2 and 3, so we say it's 2. For the third one, it's between 10 and 11, so we say that it's 11. For the fourth one, it's between 8 and 9, so we say 8. For the next one, it's at the 9, or it's between 9 and 10, so we say 9. For the next one, it's between 5 and 6, so we say 5. For the next one, it's between 1 and 2, so we say 1. Next one is between 1 and 2, so we say 1. Sorry, between 12 and 1, so we say 12. And the last one, it's between 7 and 8, and so we say 7. So we've got all the hours in place. Let's do the minutes. So just a reminder, and I'm not going to draw them in for every single one, but the minutes, the numbers on the clock are the hour hands. And if we want to put the numbers in for the minutes, it would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. There we go, 25, 125. You can count the very little dots if you want, but they go in fives. So wherever the hour number is 5, and I prefer to just count in fives. So looking at the minutes for the second one, we've got 5, 10, 15, so it's 2:15. For the next one, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, so it's 11:20. For the next one, it's just at the 5, so we say 05. For the next one, it's at the top, which we write as 00. We never actually write it as 60, although there are 60 minutes an hour. As soon as it gets to the next one, it's starting on the next hour. If you look at your digital watch, you will notice that it goes 59 naught. And if you ever stay up to midnight and you've got a 24-hour clock, you'll see it go naught, 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 if you've got seconds. Okay, looking at number 5, which was number 6, which was this one here. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So it's 5:40. Looking at the next one, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So it's 1:50. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 12, 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 7:45. Now comes the tricky part where we've got to put it into words. We start with the minutes pretty much for all of them. So we're going to go, I'm going to write it as a mixture of words and numbers because I'm running out of space, but 25 past, and that's because it's in the first half. So 25 past. And what was it past? It was past 1. So 25 past 1, or seeing as we're mixing it up, let's say 25 past 1. Looking at the next one, don't know why I drew it over there. Okay, so 25 past 1 was there. Now let's have a look at this one. We're also looking at the past, and we've got a special one because it's over there. And we say either it's 15 past or quarter past. And that's past 2. I'm also going to write it as 15 past. It's not wrong to say that. We just have a special one, which is why we have it there. Okay, looking at the next one, it's 20. It's still in the first half, so it's 20 past. We sometimes say 20 minutes past, but it's fine just to say 20 past, and it's 20 past 11. Next one, we're still in the past, but we're only a little bit past. Doesn't matter. We are 5 past, and we are past 8. A special one again. We've got 9 o'clock. Okay, we have moved now, that was 9 o'clock, we've moved now into the second half where we're counting down to the next hour. So the next hour after 5 is 6. The next hour, okay, so yeah, so the next, let's go do them one at a time. So how many more minutes do we need to get to the next hour? You can count on the clock. So let's do it over here. We need 5, 10, 15, 20 more minutes to get to the next hour. And so we're going to say 20 to 6. That's how we get the 20. And you'll notice that if you added these two numbers together, you'll get 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. Looking at the next one, which is also in the second half with the minutes. And the hour after 1 is 2, so it's something to 2. Let's see how many minutes it is. It's 5, 10 minutes. So it's 10 to 2. And again, you'll notice that if you add those two together, you get 60. We've looked at y. This one is at the middle way. So in fact, this one is a past. It's a special one. We would say half past. And that's 12:30. And the other way we could write it is 30 past 12. All right, so up to there we're going with the green one, although we have a special one for that. These special ones are better to use than the other ones. And the final one, which we can just squeeze in at the bottom. Again, we're in the second half of the clock, so we're on a countdown to the next hour. So we're counting down to the next hour after 7, which is 8. So how many minutes until 8? Well, it's 5, 10, 15 minutes to 8. So it's 15 minutes. Didn't write minutes. 15 to 8. Or it's one of the special ones. 7:45 to 8. Wow. All I can say, grade 5s, is that it takes a while before this becomes something that you can just do in your head. So don't stress if you haven't got it today. I hope that's, let me not move those around. I hope that has not confused you more. I hope that's brought a little bit of light to how we read the analog time. It does make it quite tricky that we have all these conventions. There's some hysterical comedies on YouTube with people talking about time and how we tell time. Anyway, that's beside the point. Okay, so we'll carry on with time in our next lesson and switching between 12 and 24-hour time and reading analog time and putting the time onto the clock and putting the time from the clock onto or into writing, all of those sorts of things. It's in a lesson to come. So just as always at the end of the lesson, just a reminder, you want to email me, grade5@worksheetcloud.com. Do the worksheet above just to make sure you've got this. Or if you haven't, don't stress. There's a memo there for you to work through, and I will actually go through the memo in the next lesson because we'll still be doing time. Grade 5s, have a fantastic rest of the day. I will see you again soon.